A quick update on everything going on in the lab. Got a new printer, Anycubic Photon M3 Max. For the price, about $950. Pretty good to get a pretty large print size. Although I definitely think Frozens seem to be better so far, based on my experience with the software. I have a bunch of bottles that are currently filled with distilled water, and then 2 resin bottles over there. There's a resin bottle that's been converted to a water bottle, and I'm currently distilling water over here. This is full of a lot of calcium hydroxide and calcium carbonate precipitate. I let tap water sit out here, cold tap water, because I found that hot tap water has a lot of iron floating around in it, or pieces that get dissolved in it for whatever reason. But cold water mostly just has lime in it, at least around here. And all of that lime starts to precipitate out as more CO2 goes into the solution. That then collects over here as distilled water, and that's being used over here to clean out another one of these HDPE resin bottles, which have additives to make them dark so that you can store photosensitive chemicals in them. And they're also just pretty good generally to store things like isopropyl alcohol. Speaking of which, here's all my chemicals. And there's some propane there too. And then I've got some isopropyl alcohol. This stuff is 99% isopropyl alcohol, but I've added some molecular sieves. These things, type 3A, which are perfect because they absorb water, but the isopropyl alcohol can't get into the little pores inside of them. So this brings the purity up to about 99.9%, which can then be measured with one of these guys, hydrometer. And that's along with temperature. And that's how I keep track of my isopropyl alcohol and what the concentration of it is. I've also got a bunch of storage items back there for storing larger items. And then there's the wiring for my cooling loop. Just a bunch of Wago connectors and a 12 volts power supply is plugged into the wall. That's an acrylic thing for PC cooling, I suppose. Corsair radiator with 3 Noctua fans connected to it. And then that's all connected together with direct male-to-male fittings. And there's some fittings there to connect some silicone tubes directly up to this reflux condenser. The alcohol in here is pretty nasty, very nasty, full of resin from the 3D prints. And I'm going to be, after I'm done distilling a sufficient amount of water and cleaning things out, cleaning containers out, which distilled water is very good for, I'm going to start putting some isopropyl alcohol in here. Of course, I am going to run it through UV light first so that all of the resin can cure inside of it and have that settle down to the bottom. After that, I'll take the stuff off the top, which is generally pretty clear. Stick that in here, distill it over to this side, and then I'll put the molecular sieves in it and get all that water out of it, because it does absorb water until it reaches a concentration of something like 95% concentration. It likes to stick to water. They like to mix together. So putting those molecular sieves in there is good. Then you just heat the molecular sieves up to get the water back out of them, up to about 550 Celsius for 2 hours, according to the instructions on the sieves that I have. There's still a little bit more organization that needs to happen over here, but I do have these Gridfinity organizers I've been using to try and make things more compact. All these Dremel things over here and over here all need to be put into one single Gridfinity organizer that'll go onto my tray. So I'm printing a whole lot of those, printing more organizers. Eventually all this stuff will be neatly organized so that I have more desk space to do things. And then maybe at some point I'll actually have space over here to put a still air box or something of that nature for dealing with algae and trying to keep contaminating viruses and fungi out of strains of algae and other things, and just to do things that are very sensitive to the presence of, various dust particles in the air, particularly semiconductors like silicon wafers and things like that. Somehow I will get all of the equipment to make silicon wafers in this tiny little room. Mostly centrifuge, and I need that still air box very crucially for that. So this is the current status of everything. And then here's the little working area where I've got all of my stuff. And over here I've got tucked away a switch and a Raspberry Pi with a little M.2 solid state drive there that is totally overkill for the Pi, but it does exist there and it's reusable. And I've got a power, basically surge protector plugged into surge protector, and everything is just so many AC outlets in use. And I hope that one day houses have USB-C connections built into them with power delivery, because that would help a lot. That's it.